Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Origin teams have been named. Moley, Dicko. A few surprise packets in there, weren't there?
There was a few bolters.
Couple of bolters. We're going to get stuck into that very shortly. But before we do, just a massive shout out to our major sponsor, Grip Star High Performance Socks. Guys, we've got a code floating around on our socials, Nostra 30. So that's 30% discount at checkout. Some of the biggest names in the game wear these socks. Kalen Ponga, Reese Walsh. Who else we got, guys?
The hammer.
The hammer, yeah.
Yeah, the list goes on. Xavier Coates, all these guys are Origin players, so get around them. Best socks in the game, lads. Origin selection. First and foremost, we have a few debutants. Are any of those debutants sort of catching anyone by surprise here? I'll just read them out. Who's on debut?
Well, let's go through. Let's talk about the New South Wales side first, because Moley. We've got to include them for this because of Mole, even though we don't really want to. But let's talk about the probably the favourite to win the series, I reckon, first. So let's talk about New South Wales, eh?
Yeah, New South Wales definite favourites. We'll play the underdog card till the cows come home. Look, do you know what? We put a post out about the 5 Panthers players, and whether or not they'll make it, and all 5 made it, which I'm not too happy about, being a Penrith fan, of course. But
yeah, I'm not sure all 5 should have made
they
it.
deserved it.
Well, for starters, Tedesco has been head and shoulders above Dylan Edwards this year, so let's start with him. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I'm perplexed at that selection. I was looking at it today. I thought Tedesco would have got the nod for sure.
I think there's probably 3 or 4 pullbacks ahead of him, to be honest.
Well, as a Queensland fan, I'm sitting back going, I'm very happy James Tedesco's not in this team. This
Will you be even happier Terrell May's not in the team?
Yeah, well, that's exactly right.
That's exactly right. But yeah,
I'll tell you what matchup I was looking forward to: Xavier Coates versus Zach Lomax.
So will they be on the? Will they left wing, right? No, yeah, he's a right winger, isn't he, Lomax?
Yeah.
Left winger Xavier Coates. Yeah, Val will play on either side. So yeah, cool.
Threat.
It's going to be like a game of AFL, isn't it? Trying to outmark.
Wait, that try that Xavier Coates scored at Shark Park on the weekend, that was honestly, someone took a photo from the.
Yes.
Did you see that? From the sideline, and it looked like he was standing on top of old mate's head, Atkinson's head. It was unbelievable.
It was incredible.
You'd think he just jumped on a trampoline and jumped on his head. It was just freakish. And to catch the ball and bring the ball down and score, to me, that was every bit as good as the skill showed by Marky for the Roosters for his try.
Oh, what a try that was.
Oh, mate, that's next level, that try. Oh, seriously.
Unbelievable. Brian Toto obviously is on one wing, and we spoke about Zach Lomax. A bit of an injury cloud over Stephen Crichton. What do you think about Campbell Graham as the backup, Molly?
I think on his day, he's a very good player, but he hasn't played much footy the last 12 months. I think he had a pec injury last year, and I think he's had a few problems this year, but he was very good yesterday against the Tigers. So
yeah, people were talking him up against the Tigers, but let's face it, the Tigers.
Molly, are you surprised Tommy Turbo's not there?
Not overly, in that the Blues do have an embarrassment of riches, and Tommy's been getting hurt a lot, as we know. He was never going to get fullback, and he's not really a winger. And Latrell grabbed one of the centre spots. Crichton has to be there. So I think we'll see him at some stage of the series through injury, suspension, or whatever. But I'm not surprised. No.
So do you think it's more of a form case, or more of a he's just sort of still carrying a niggle maybe, and he's lacking a little bit of confidence?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, but more of the latter.
Okay.
I think he's just gone from one injury to the next, poor bloke, and he's a lovely fellow, Tom, and I really feel for him. But I think he would admit himself he's not playing at his best because he's not 100% fit, and you can just see it when he runs. And I think his confidence has taken a bit of a battering.
He almost looks like he's going to cry on the field every run. Don't you think?
Well, I just think it's the worry in the back of his mind that if he really lets go and sort of plays with some freedom, I think he probably feels he's going to get injured again.
Who would have thought that the best Trbojevic player is Ben this season?
Yeah. Well, he's the last one standing, isn't he?
Well, I'm glad Tom's not there, because every time he's played for New South Wales, he's carved us up in Queensland.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad he's not there.
And we should mention Jake as well. It saved Laurie Daly a very embarrassing situation, because I don't think he could have picked Jake on form. And the fact Jake got knocked out the other day and is ineligible means Laurie doesn't have to drop his winning captain. Probably a Blues winning captain's never been dropped before. So,
very true.
Would have taken a big call to drop him, but it would have been the right call because there's just other guys playing better than him.
Yeah.
Now, what do we make of the Mitchell Moses, Nathan Cleary pairing? I think that the big question for me is Mitch Moses going to be able to take a back seat?
I've got a bit. I'll let Molly go first because I've got a little bit to say on this. But what do you think, Molly?
Well, Jerome Luai was the incumbent, wasn't he? And I think we all knew in the back of our heads, as soon as Jerome signed with the Tigers, he was putting his Origin spot at risk. And basically, he's taken the money, but he's lost his Origin spot because he's playing in a team that gets beat not every week, but quite regularly. And it's affected his form. So, I don't have a problem with it. I think they're the two form halves. And, these blokes have been picked on form, whereas I have question marks over a few other players in the Blues team.
Well, this is the thing. This is where the two different sort of selection panel decisions play out on Queensland and New South Wales. Because if we were talking about Queensland and Jerome Luai had played Game 3 last year, he would be a name penciled in. He would be playing. All right, he's the incumbent. Queensland like to pick and stick generally. But I think Mitch Moses in Game 3 kind of made it impossible for him not to be picked in this first game. And if anything, I thought Cleary was probably under a little bit of pressure personally, because I really feel he could have gone Moses at 7 and Luai at 6 if he's fair dinkum about it. But then you probably can't leave Cleary out. Like,
no, I don't think he could have ever. That would have been a massive call for a coach coming back, and a coach who hasn't had great success. I think you got to stick with, the tried and tested players, and Cleary has performed at the highest level. He probably hasn't been at his peak in a lot of his Origins, but he's won grand finals and he's a big game player. And that Penrith connection with Yo, with Toho, I think he's the man for the job.
I feel like it's a safe selection. I think if he picked Luai, he would have been rolling the dice a little bit on form with Luai, and but he would have had that combination already established with Cleary and Yo and Crichton and Edwards. But my sort of concern with this combination is that the halfback generally can play both sides, but I dare say they're going to be utilised on one side of the field. And and as you said, Dizz, one of them is going to have to take a back seat, whether it's Moses, whether it's Cleary, whoever it is.
It has to be Cleary calling the shots, and Moses has a back seat, surely.
Because when I look at this team, I see a lot of alphas in this team, a lot of guys that chase the footy and are their number one go-to in club footy. Latrell, for instance, I mean, he's been amazing the last 2 weeks. Stephen Crichton, Isaiah Yo's almost Penrith's number one, really. So it's whether they can, the 17 guys that they've selected, and it's always been about that. It's picking 17 guys that are going to buy in, right? Not necessarily you're picking the best player. It's more about picking the best team. I think they'll go well, but I think he's made of the decision's sort of an easy decision. It's okay. I've picked it on Moses is playing well. Cleary's playing well. They're probably our two best options. Let's put them at 7 and 6, and let's see what happens. Is what I feel
Look,
like.
I'm not surprised with the forward pack if we run through there. I mean,
I'm surprised
again,
Mitch Barnett is starting. I must admit.
is it picked on form? Because if it's picked on form, the hooker should be Blake Brayley, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
My hooker would be Appy, but
Yeah.
the team was selected before Appy ran on the field last night and scored 2 dazzling hooker
Yeah.
tries. And I think Appy's been, a great player for New South Wales, for Penrith in the past, for the Tigers. Let's not forget he's been playing in a wooden spoon team the last 3 years and still killing it. To me, he gives them that creativity, and he is the closest thing we got to Harry Grant. And Harry Grant is the big ace up Queensland's
I'd have to agree.
So I would have gone with
I'd have to.
Robson is safe. He makes his tackles, but he gives you nothing in attack, whereas Appy is all attack. So I think they could live to regret this.
I'd have to agree with you there, Molly. I thought Appy was probably the form hooker. I know Harry Grant's just come back from injury, but in the last probably, month, I reckon Coruscant's almost been the best hooker in the comp, to be honest. I know they got towed up the other week, 64-0, but he gives all heart. He's got an underlying combination there. You're right. Robson doesn't offer a great deal in attack. But I think the back row is strong in Liam Martin and Angus Crichton when they're playing well. I don't think how you cannot have Hudson Young starting in the back row, I'll never know. Again, it's an embarrassment of riches, and they've gone with what won in the series last year, and I get that. But at some point in time, if Hudson keeps putting the games up, he's putting up for Canberra, a decision has to be made. I think, because he, to me, has been the best back rower this year.
Playing a lot better than Liam Martin, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's the form second rower.
He's well ahead of Liam Martin on form.
Yeah.
But you look at it the other way, you bring him on after 30 minutes when the Queenslanders getting tired, he could create absolute carnage. So it could be a masterstroke.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Let's go. We've just spoken about the edges. Happy with Isaiah Yeo as captain?
I think so.
Yeah, he's a great captain. He's proved that at Penrith. The only other captain I'd have is Cleary, and Cleary plays under Yeo, and he runs the back line and probably makes a lot of the on-field decisions. But Yeo's a very respected figure, does everything right, and I think the guys follow him in the battle. So yeah, he's a good choice.
Yeah, and of course the debutant Max King. I mean, you wrote an awesome article, Molly, on Max King, and it's a testament to his character and sort of where he's been and where he's at now. Awesome achievement for him.
Yeah, 28 years old. He's had 3 heart surgeries that I didn't know about. I had a chat to his dad today, Dave, who played for the Gold Coast in the 90s. And he told me the full story. He had an Achilles injury that just about finished him. The Storm cut him. When you get cut by the Storm, it's a bad message because they're good judges, the Storm. And he was ready to retire. And when he signed with the Bulldogs, there was a clause in his contract that after 6 weeks, if you haven't performed, we're going to cut you. So he was really under some pressure. And he's risen above all that, and thoroughly deserves his spot. He's a battler. He's not going to charge through the middle of the ruck and score tries, but he'll hold his end up. He won't let him down. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I guess the most controversial decision, Diz, is the leaving out of Terrell May in the 20. Can't even make the extended. And
yeah, I'm stunned by that. And
for
starters, they should have waited until they saw what he did last night, give him an even chance. And maybe if they'd waited, as Queensland do, and this is one thing I always find strange, that New South Wales picked their team Sunday night. I think the Queenslanders more than once have looked at that team and said, okay, they've picked player X, we'll pick player Y to counter him. It's a big advantage picking your team 12 hours later. I'm serious. And if Terrell May had been given a chance and Laurie Daly could have slept on it overnight, I reckon he would have been in that squad.
Well, could we have seen Keon Kalamatangi in there as well?
Well, didn't he kill him?
He ran for about
that was
1,000
the
metres,
game
didn't
from,
he?
This is the
Yeah.
part that baffles me, right? That all reports were Jacob Saifidi was going to be on the bench instead of Max King. Like, you've got to be kidding yourself if that was what was going to happen. Like, Jacob Saifidi had a Terrell May. Like hypothetically, Max King's not in this side if Jacob Saifidi doesn't injure his calf. Jacob Saifidi versus Terrell May is a joke. Like, they're not even close.
Yep, I agree. I think it's like Terrell May leaving the Roosters. Something that we don't know, but we we just think there was something weird, because why would you cut your most devastating forward when you've already lost players? It just made absolutely no sense, and I think the Roosters now regret it.
Yeah.
And I think the Blues might regret it.
Well, I
It's
think
just
Laurie
very
Daly
strange.
came out and said he's looking at the defensive aspect of his game. Well, yesterday he made 63 tackles and none missed. So I reckon his defensive game's going all right.
Yeah.
Anyways,
And there's 63 tackles that hurt. Like you get players who made 60 tackles often the hookers, and none of them hurt. But I know I'd much prefer being hit by a hooker than Terrell May.
oh, he was unbelievable.
Your connection's not great there, Molly. You must be all that rain, mate, where you are, I reckon.
Could be. Yeah, I'm up the coast. So
Well, power on, though.
Have you got a Dragons jersey on there for a reason, or what?
I didn't notice that.
They
You're
finally
kidding.
won a game. You're doing that to stir up Dicko.
yes, they won a game.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Queensland team.
Yeah,
Forget
you
about the
wanna talk
Broncos.
about that one,
No, we're good.
All right, Queensland. Oh, yep. Kalen Ponga, number one. We don't really have anyone to choose.
No,
so we put him in.
He's fine, mate. Don't worry about that.
Well, do you know what's going to be interesting? And I was talking to this to you actually briefly, Dicko, off air today. This is going to be a test for Kalen on whether or not he genuinely is serious about rugby league still. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible, because I've seen elements of Kalen Ponga playing for the Newcastle Knights. And to me, it feels like he doesn't really care. And obviously he's on a massive pay packet. And he's got legitimate excuses with the Knights, forward pack not really laying a platform, the halves combination being pretty average, so he can't really play out the back of shape. And they have no territory, field position, momentum whatsoever. So he's been able to do basically, nothing for, since round 2. Is Kalen Ponga going to show Queensland what he's actually made of on the back of this team?
Well, I look at it this way. If you're a professional athlete and your team's not going well, and you're the focal point of that organization, right? You're the marquee guy. Everything revolves around him at Newcastle. If they're not playing well, it's Kalen Ponga needs to inject himself more. If they're playing well, it's all off the back of him, right? When they made the charge to the not to the grand final, to the finals that year, he almost stole a Dally M, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that getting him out of that environment and into an environment where when he looks around, he sees elite talent, as opposed to, I don't want to disrespect any of the Knights players, they're professional athletes, right? And they're NRL players, but let's face it, they're struggling, some of their players. And I think some decisions around that squad needs to be made in terms of the way forward for Newcastle. But in terms of Kalen, getting around an environment where you look around and he's not going to be solely relied upon to come up with big plays. He can just inject himself when he wants and almost go back to, you know what, I'm just going to go out there and have a bit of fun, because I know that if I don't come up with the points, we have enough talent in this footy team that we're going to come up with points. So you have to be excited about that if you're him, as opposed to down, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, there's no excuse.
I agree.
The big problem with the Knights, it's no secret, is the halves. Adam O'Brien's been juggling them all season, and it's the halves who dictate what happens with the ball. You watch what happens when Cherry Evans gets a ball in his hands. He'll know to give Ponga time and space,
Correct.
and it'll make a massive difference having guys like him there, and all the other guys around him. As you say, it's a totally different environment.
Well, yeah, you think Munster's going to give him any ball when any New South Wales players anywhere near him? It's going to be clear, clean ball in space.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if Queensland are going well, and then then footy will just happen for him.
Munster should just treat it like it's Ryan Pappenhausen out the back, because he gives the ball to Pappy that early now. It's not funny to give him the space to move.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. Absolutely. And to be honest, I think for a really big advantage Queensland has is that channel around Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow and his speed. If he matches up on either Crichton and or Mitchell, if you can get him early ball and utilise his speed, a la, if you remember, game 1 last year, I know he went to fullback when Walsh was knocked out, but beforehand, there was a couple of times where Queensland went out with a little bit of second phase and got Hammer in space, and he sort of ran around Suaalii, who was defending at the time.
Well, I
out of the
always
right.
like to see Hammer hovering a little bit around the ruck towards the back end of the first half.
Yeah, I think he needs to be utilised almost in the. You remember a couple of years ago where Tommy Turbo just floated around, basically doing whatever the hell he wanted from right centre. He almost needs to do that. Just inject him. He can't just stand out there on an edge. I don't think. What about you, Molly?
Yeah, I think, the advantage with him, as you say, is that ability to just pop up anywhere and score. And I think Billy Slater will realise that. And he's a smart coach, Billy, and he's not afraid to experiment like that. And I think he'll be given a free rein. And if he gets a free rein, he could create carnage. The difference is Origin is just played at such breakneck speed that those gaps just don't seem to appear. The score lines are usually low. Those guys out wide just don't get the time and space. So it'll be interesting if they can find it for him.
Can I just before we move on, I just want to give a big sort of pat on the back to Billy Slater. I reckon it's a massive, and I know you're probably going to get to it next, Diz, and I sort of cut you off there, but Robert Toya, it's not, I don't think it's a huge selection call because I think he's playing really good footy, but it's a massive call to play him in the centres, I think. But it's a brave call, and I think the right call because it's his preferred position. The easiest thing, I was talking to the boys today at work, easiest thing for Billy would have been to play Val in the centres and play a Toya and or a Philip Sami or someone like that who's played an Origin game on the wing and play them and just play a safe call for game 1. But he's gone, you know what? Val is going to give us something on the wing. He's played wing on the in Origin before. He's great out of yardage. He's gonna match a To'o and a Lomax coming out of yardage. He's another big body. And then let's pick Toya in a position where he's comfortable, where he's been playing for, 10 games now of NRL. And I don't know whether our listeners have really watched him, but he's played Stephen Crichton and Herbie Farnworth, probably the 2 best centers in the game, and he's given both a bath this year. So he's got form on the board. So I think it's a brave decision to play him in the centers, but the right decision, and I applaud him for making it in the first game. Because he could have just gone the easy way and he could have just picked Val, as I said, and he could have just found someone to stand on the wing.
Well, the best part about, I think, Xavier Coates and Valentine Holmes on the wing before we get to the Toya and Hammer situation is what the Blues have coming out of yardage is huge with To'o and Lomax. And we need 2 players that are capable of, sticking it to them coming out of yardage. And Xavier Coates, in my opinion, is in the form of his career. And his yardage carriage, I think he's put on a bit of size.
I do too.
His yardage carries have been unbelievable. And Valentine Holmes arguably is playing, almost career best form as well for the Dragons. I mean, he's involved in absolutely everything at that club. And, you saw what he did on the weekend against the Broncos, and they're no slouches in that centre role with Katoni Staggs.
Guys, all that is valid, but I wouldn't be surprised if at stages during the game, Toya and Val switch. Because Toya's going to find the pace really, something just out of this world. You know what it's like when you make your Origin debut. In centres, he's going to be having plenty of traffic coming at him. And I wouldn't be surprised if they just say to him, just go out in the wing a little bit, let Val come in, take a few breaths, relax, and it might work for him. Who knows?
Do you think that is a... So are you sort of saying that that's maybe a negative in picking Toya because he might not be able to run out the 80 in the centre position, Molly, or is that just you're just able to do it with Val able to shift there easily?
Well, a bit of both, but how many times have we seen guys who've played well at club football and they come into Origin, and particularly on debut, it's like deer in the headlights, isn't it? They just cannot get used to it. They can't get into the game, whether it's nerves, whether it's the pace of the game. And we're talking about a kid who's played 10 games. And I agree, he's a good selection, but it could backfire. So if things don't go well, they've got that option of moving him into the wing and putting Val in the centres.
Well, the thing that I really like about Robert Toya in general is I think not even his attack, like defensively, he's been pretty sound. And I'm assuming he's going to defend on the right centre position.
Has he been playing right centre for the Roosters, has he?
Yeah, yeah. And on that side for the Blues, you've got Latrell Mitchell and Angus Crichton, right? They're both, and I mean this in the most respectful way, they're not great passers of the football. So it's going to come down to one-on-one edge defending. And I think Robert Toya's up to it. It's not going to be a case where Stephen Crichton can show and go, palm, flick pass, dummy and run. Like, they're a little bit more predictable, Latrell and Angus Crichton. And they're going to try run over the top of them.
And what I will say, though, with Latrell is that if he half breaks a tackle, he will look to throw a left-hand flick. So the Queensland winger on that side, which I would assume will be Val, because I think his coach is a left winger, he needs to just communicate well with Toya. And if Toya needs to let him know that he's got him, even if he feels like he's sort of the arms free, let Latrell sort of get the arm free, but Holmes can't come in. Latrell's too good. He'll find a pass around the back or something, and then Lomax or Toto will have a clean run to the line. So, yeah, you just got to be careful there. But I'm with you. I think he's up to it. He's a big lad. Again, brave decision. I'm really excited about it. And if you're going to debut him, I mean, what better place to debut him than in the Cauldron game 1? I mean, that's where you're going to do it. You're not going to debut him in Sydney under the pump. Exactly. So you're better off doing it here, game 1. And would he have played if there was an injury carnage over the weekend, do you think?
Toya,
yeah. Would he have played?
No.
You don't think he would have played?
No, they would have chosen Tuolangi and then put Valentine Holmes in him.
I reckon he would have been in the 20 as 18th or 19th man, because they acknowledge he's the future, but just blood him, get him used to the atmosphere, get him sitting on the sideline. I think that would have been the ideal thing, but I don't think it's a bad thing that he's playing.
No, either.
To be honest, I didn't even know he was a Queenslander until he got picked. So I'm glad he is.
He might not be. You know what these sneaky Queenslanders are like.
Oh, here we go.
He was probably in New South Wales till he was 12 and then moved to Queensland for a bit and then come back.
Yeah, went to the Gold Coast for a holiday.
Yeah. Munster and DCE, we don't really need to talk about them too much. Aside from the fact that they've named Dearden at 14.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
I don't like it at all.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me.
I just don't see the point in having a Tom Dearden at 14 when you've got Kurt Mann at 18. That makes no sense to me.
So are you saying that Kurt Mann should have been the 14?
Yeah, and Dearden the 18.
I would have had Dearden starting. I reckon he's been one of the four halves.
Yeah. I don't think you can, I mean, as you know, Queensland pick and stick. The reason why I say Kurt Mann, now don't get me wrong, Dearden can do a job at hooker or whatever he's poised to do, right? But when you've got a player like Kurt Mann, he can play lock, he can play through the middle,
don't need him to play
on the edge, he can play hooker. he can play in the halves. That's perfect. Like Connor Watson.
So tell me why Tom Dearden can't play at lock.
I don't think he can.
Why not?
I don't think he's got that lock type hit up game. He runs the ball a lot at club level, but that's on an edge, not through the middle.
I wouldn't say Connor Watson has a lock roll game either.
Well, he has recently in the last couple of weeks with Docker Clay coming on.
I just think Harry Grant he didn't play the 80 minutes for Melbourne.
I just don't see where he's going to come on. If he's going to come on as a hooker, like I don't understand why you'd have Tom Dearden there.
I would bring both of them on. I was talking about this actually to someone today. Is Harry Grant needs to play 80 minutes for Queensland? Any chance in this series, he's got to play 80 minutes. And I think Dearden can do a job, and it might only be for 20 minutes, but he can come on and just say, you know what, just fit into the defensive line. We want you to run and take the line on. He's great at he's one of the, apart from probably Cleary, and Moses, his running game is in the top 3 halves in the game, I reckon, Tom Dearden. He loves taking the line on.
One thing I can see him being beneficial for, which I didn't say, is if there's an outside back injury.
Well, you have to have cover for that these days, mate. This is the thing with HIA. So you almost have to pick a back on the bench, like a genuine back.
I think a lot of how many minutes he plays will depend on the scoreline, because he's the sort of bloke you want coming on if you're 6 to 8 points behind. I don't think you particularly want him coming on if you're 6 to 8 points ahead.
Yeah, agree with that. Yeah.
Attack as his go.
Yeah.
And he can lay on a try for you. He can score one himself.
Yeah.
You know, as you said, his running game, he just dummies through the line, and he's so good at it. He does it every week for the Cowboys, and he's kept them in the race. But if you're behind, you know, he's he's the man. If you're ahead, his defence, I mean, he puts his heart and soul in there, but if he's got a Spencer Lanu or something running around him, is he going to be able to hold them out? So it'd be interesting to see what the situation of the game is.
Here's a left field one for you. What if it was a case of Billy wants him there just in case Kalen Ponga doesn't bring his Queensland form to the table and brings his Knights form to the table?
And shift Munster to fullback.
Munster to fullback.
Oh, well, I think he creates a lot of options for Billy, having him on the bench. You're right, Dizz. It could be that. I mean, it creates a lot of options, I think, for Queensland. And I don't think
Cherry Evans hasn't been great, has he? So
no, that's right.
If they're 8 points behind with 20 to go, and Cherry's been doing nothing, which is very possible, straight switch.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think of the Mo selection, the Fodawaker?
I thought he'd be in the 17. I must admit, I'm a little surprised he's starting. Part of me doesn't expect him to start. I really feel like Big Red Corey Horsburgh is he's
been dudded.
Well, I think he's been a little tough, although I don't think his last 2 weeks have been as good as his first sort of 8 weeks. But I would have had him in my team, definitely. And Mo has been there before, hasn't sort of lit it up. It's another opportunity. He kind of reminds me a bit of, you remember Matt Scott, how Matt Scott came onto the scene really early for Queensland and sort of never lit it up for about the first 3 to sort of 6 or 7 games, but then really turned into a stalwart. It kind of reminds me a little bit about that. And I think the combination there with Tino, although the Titans haven't been travelling, I think they've probably been, well, the 3 Titans that they've picked have been their best 3 players, let's face it. I mean, I was surprised. I thought he'd be in the 17, but to answer your question, I'm surprised he's starting, I must admit.
Obviously, Tino goes without. I'm so glad that he's back in the side. We've spoken about Harry Grant. This is the part that really worries me. Ruben Cotter at second row.
Yeah, Billy loves him.
And you've got Beau Fermor on the bench.
Yeah, Billy loves Ruben Cotter. Billy loves him.
I just don't understand.
What do you think, Molly?
I think he epitomises the Queensland spirit, doesn't he? He's a battler. He goes for the 80 minutes. He has real pride in the jumper. Whether he stays in the second row, whether they move him to prop or middle, who knows? But yeah, he was always going to get picked. I knew that.
Well, what I could see happening just by looking at it, and I'm only looking at it now as we're talking about it and sort of getting a feel, is I could see Mo playing maybe the first 20 to 22 minutes. And then what I could see happening is then him coming off and you're bringing on a Beau for more. You're moving Ruben Cotter back to lock and you're putting Paddy Carrigan up into the front row probably for the next sort of 20 minutes. And then you bring Lindsay on maybe for Tino just before half time is what I could sort of see in a perfect world. That interchange would work because Billy loves Ruben Cotter and I love him as a player because he will just throw his body into the places that you and I wouldn't even think about putting our body or our head or whatever. And he'll stick his body in front of Liam Martin and or Angus Crichton, whichever side of the field he's on, and he'll get knocked to the ground, he'll get back up and he'll do it again. So yeah, Billy loves he's all 1% of Ruben Cotter. He's not gonna light it up with a line break or a flick pass or anything like that, but he's gonna give you 1,001%ers in the game.
He's the modern day Billy Moore, isn't he?
Yeah, you're right. 100% Molly. Yeah, great comparison there.
I just
Absolutely.
hope with the way that and I don't want to be a dampener on Ruben Cotter or the vibe that we're creating here about Queensland spirit. I just don't know if the game and the rules these days suit Ruben Cotter at origin level anymore. I think he struggled last year.
I think Queensland struggled last year. I think we were just.
I mean, like playing in that second row spot because he had to play a bit of second row there. To be honest, I think Kurt Capewell was a bit hard done by. I think his form at the Warriors has been unbelievable.
Yeah, and
he's
versatile. He can fill a few holes.
Play centre, yeah. He can play centre if he needed to.
I reckon we'll see him at some stage of the series. He was one of the best on the field the other day, but as we know, the team's already picked basically, and it was a little bit too late. But
I do like how Billy, and I've only kind of just noticed it really, and it's a shame Murray Tuolangi's out, but they've kind of got the Titans combo up front. They've got the, Cowboys in the second row. You would have had the Cowboys on centre and wing. He's sort of gone a bit of club combos. And I think at one point there, we missed out on Cobbo and Tuolangi in the one day yesterday. So, yeah, things would have had to get changed around a fair bit. What do you make of obviously debutant Trent Liero on the bench?
Well, he was in the squad last year. I think he was 18th man in game 3 or 19th man. So I think he's a bit like a Max King. He just goes about his business, doesn't he? He's sort of unheralded. He's in a good system there at Melbourne. So he starts in the lock position at the Storm. And I definitely think he's deserved his position in this team. He's as a sort of a bench sort of filler in guy. I don't mind it. I don't have an issue with it.
I don't think he's going to worry the Blues in that he's not going to rattle anyone's cage in defence. He's not going to make a 30, 40-metre bust, but he'll do his job, as you say. And for a bench player, yeah.
That's all you got to do, isn't it? You just got to do your job.
I think for the first time in a long time, the forward matchup is actually based on who the Blues have chosen, which I wouldn't have chosen them. I think it's actually made it pretty even.
Yeah, you probably got more New South Wales players in sort of better form, I reckon, than Queenslanders. But yeah, I do think if they're both playing, if they're all playing well, I feel like they match up.
I think it's going to be a proper bash up through the middle. I think it's going to be unreal.
I mean, can we sort of just allude to the big elephant in the room, and I think there's going to be one New South Welshman that might just be in for a little tough time at Suncorp in 2 Wednesdays' time, and I allude to the number 15 for the New South Wales Blues. A few comments made recently by a very immature Spencer Leniu, I would say, just poking the bear. So my message, and Billy, if you're listening, stick the podcast onto the boys, and I would be sending a message to Tino that as soon as 15 comes on, fold him in half, please.
Is JT still on the coaching staff?
Mate, you can be guaranteed JT will be there somewhere.
The thing about Spencer Leniu, and I agree with you, he has been poking the bear, but he seems the sort of bloke who doesn't care.
Yeah, he doesn't.
He'll just get out there and rip and tear, and if they do the same to him, he'll be quite happy to accommodate them. So, but you're right, it will be on, as it is in every Origin. And then we come to the other elephant in the room. What's the referee going to do?
Oh, who is? Have they
when
named it? They
start
haven't named a
playing?
ref
Tell
yet,
me
have
it's
they?
not Klein. It's not Klein.
They haven't named a ref yet. They don't name it until next week. Is that right, Molly? I'm pretty sure.
Klein.
It's Klein, is it? It
No,
can't be
it's
Klein.
not, but it will be.
Surely. It
They
can't
give
be
it to him every
Klein.
year.
Give
He
it to
just-
Adam G. He's the best ref in the game.
It'll be
unbelievable.
Klein.
So what are we
Unbelievable.
locking in prediction-wise? All right, should we go to a prediction early? Should
Mate,
we go to an early crow?
We've got another potty, next week before the game. Purely based off team selection. I've been listening to Molly the last 3 weeks. Golden Point.
Golden
Does
Point.
Origin have Golden Point?
Yeah, it's got Golden Point.
Don't you remember the Lockyer field goal? What do you reckon, Molly? What's your early thoughts?
Yeah, I just think the Blues have, because they've got that bigger talent pool. Both teams have knocked a bit from injury, but the Blues replacements are just that little bit more experienced. Not confidently up there. You never can be, but I think New South Wales by 6 or so.
Yeah, well, look, purely because Queensland are at home, I'm going to say Queensland by 2, but I do expect Queensland to lose the series 2-1.
This is exactly where us Queenslanders love to be. right where we are now. No, seriously. I know we sort of say that and we sort of have a laugh about it, but this is exactly where we've been apart from the 10 years where we dominated Origin footy, we've generally on paper, New South Wales pick a more talented side than what we do because just of the player pool. So this just goes into the Origin narrative where the Queenslanders are the underdogs, and on game day, generally something special happens. Whether there's enough to beat this New South Wales team, who's extremely talented and a bloody good footy side, well, we'll find out.
Um,
Time will tell.
Yeah,
time will tell.
can't wait.
Let's have a chat about the Broncos and Ezra Mam.
Oh yeah.
Yep. I was almost going to say Ezra Mam's a bit of a smoky to make an Origin appearance. What do you reckon? You think so?
I thought he was in a losing team by far the best player for Brisbane. I was at the game.
He was the best player on the field.
Oh, I thought Gutho was good for the Dragons, and I thought he sort of. I thought without Gutherson, the Dragons wouldn't have won. But yeah, Mam was. It's funny because where I sat, and I'll make it known. I'm a big Ezra Mam fan. I don't condone anything that's happened, but I'm a fan of his. I think he's an extremely talented footballer. I feel like he's very remorseful. On the weekend, I was sitting not far from where he was taking the kickoffs. And when he walked back after he scored, the reception that he got from the crowd was, I felt like a weight was lifted off his shoulders and he could just go back and start enjoying his footy again. He had a bit of a smile on his face. And I think in that moment, he realised, you know what? I made a massive mistake and I've got it pretty good playing professional footy. Earning big money. So I need to really take this with both hands. And I thought he did on the weekend. I thought without him, Brisbane were bustards, to be honest. And I'd go for the team.
He was the only one having a go at stages. And I picked him in my team of the week, and not many losing players make the team of the week. And I actually said I didn't particularly want to pick him because I don't like what he's done and how he's basically got away with the slap on the wrist. But on pure football form, he was the best 5/8 going around last weekend by lengths, and the Broncos were an embarrassment, but he kept them in the game.
I agree with you, Molly. I agree with you, mate.
Do you think that the fact that Ezra Mam was best on ground was due to, and this is going to be a very tough question to hear, Dicko, do you think it was due to the emotion that he played with? Or do you think it's down to the current culture at the Broncos?
Geez, you love putting me on the spot. No, I felt like he was clearly emotional. There was no, I saw, because at the ground you got the Fox League broadcast on the big screen. So basically, when he runs out, and pretty much every time he touched the footy, the camera was on him, right on him, and he was he was emotional. But yeah, I thought he could have done the easy thing for him to do on the weekend would have been, you know what, I've been picked. I'm just going to sit back. I'm just going to get through a game. You know, I'm going to just make my tackles. I'm going to pass the footy, and I'm just going to sit back and sort of fade away a little bit. But you know what? He put himself out there, and I got to give him. And you're right, Molly's right. What he said. You know, it was a bit of a slap on the wrist, and we don't agree with the punishment that was handed down. That's not Ezra's fault. The punishment. Ezra's fault is in the crime, right? Ezra's fault is not the punishment that was given to him. So we can't begrudge him for the punishment because that's not his fault. All right, that's the NRL. Disgraceful. I mean, I thought he should have got 12 months personally.
And let's not forget the judge in the court case.
Well, that's even worse. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let's not even get. That's a rabbit hole, Molly, and we don't want to go down there.
Yeah.
You know, but I thought he put himself out there by really going to the game and having a red hot crack. Because as I said, he could have just sat in the background and let Reynolds and Cobbo and these guys sort of run the show. But he put himself out there knowing that if he had a poor game, the whips would have been really cracking. I'm telling you, they would have been coming for him. But I feel like now it's a little bit of pressure now off him. And for Brisbane, I think the only way Brisbane can move forward is if Ezra Mam's their 5'8". It's as simple as that.
Is there and this is a question for both of you, is there, with the Broncos, is there a magnitude of issues at the moment as to why they're not winning games, or is there one specific issue that you think is sort of the main cause of why they're in the form? I personally think there's one main reason, and I'll tell you after you've had your say. But
Molly can go first here because I need to remove emotion out of this before I answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, on paper, to me, they're in the top two teams in the NRL. They got half an Origin team. They got so much strike power, so much ability. Payne Haas, the best front rower in the game, leading them forward. And yet they're struggling and doing stupid things on the field. I think there's obviously a rift between the players and Madge. Last year everyone was complaining that Billy was too soft. Kevy, sorry. Now this year they're complaining Madge is too hard. I think sometimes these players have just got to have a good hard look at themselves and realise that they're professional footballers. They've got it pretty good, as we've been saying, and they've got to go out there and produce. And the Broncos just aren't doing it for whatever reason. It's clearly not a happy camp. I mean, just in this last week alone, we had the Marty Tapau sacking, which obviously divided the camp somewhat. We had the issue with the horse. I mean, they wanted to get rid of Buck the Bronco. And then we had all the Mam drama, and maybe that unsettled the players. I mean, again, they're professional athletes; they should just go out there and play to their ability, but they're not. They're going dreadful. And let's not forget, the Dragons are a pretty ordinary football team. I hate to say it, and they just made them look absolutely second rate. They just wanted it more, and if Mam hadn't been there, they would have won by 20 to 30, I reckon.
Well, there was a sin bin as well, wasn't there?
Yeah.
I think the Dragons scored
and
2
they
tries.
scored 2 tries while the bloke was in the bin. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, if I can sum it up, like really, literally, Brisbane are a dumb football team. It's as simple as that. They're dumb. They don't play smart football. And what I mean by that is they give away penalties and they look for easy options. All right. The Clint Gutherson first try is a perfect example. All right. Players couldn't get back on side and he just runs past 2 players that were caught offside. I mean, you cannot do that on your line. You can't. Max King just got picked in an Origin team because Laurie Daly alluded to the fact that the Bulldogs were down one end of the field. He took a hit up. The ball was turned over. Someone ran the length. One of the Titans players ran the length of the field, got tackled a metre out. The bloke making the next tackle was Max King. Now, you would not see that from a Brisbane player apart from maybe a Haas or a Carrigan. You would not see that from any other Brisbane forward, I'm sorry. They are refusing at the moment to do one percenters. You have the top liners overplaying their hand, and you have the bottom liners not putting in enough effort. Now, I'll give you an example. Jordan Ricky on the weekend. And I actually don't mind. I think Jordan Ricky's can be a very good footballer. 7 runs for 68 meters as a back rower. Okay. Now that just can't happen. My suggestion to Brisbane would be your back rowers have to run at least 12 times a game. 6 in each half. Simple. Start with that. If you don't run for 12 times, you don't make the team. The other thing is that he won't make a selection change. Kobe Hetherington's selection is meaningless. He plays 30 minutes a game. It's pointless. It's a joke. He's offering nothing. Corey Jensen's the best bench forward. Put him in the starting team for God's sake. I even think.
And just move Paddy to 13.
Mate, you know I love Paddy. I've told you this. I love Paddy Carrigan. I think he's a great footballer, but I actually think his form has suffered playing in the front row. I don't think he's been anywhere near what he was the last 2 years, Paddy Carrigan.
I think he's still doing his job, but he's not.
Oh, he's still an elite player, but he's not because he's not utilised.
Yeah.
And
before like putting Isaiah Yeo in the front row.
Yeah, and before Ezra came back, Brisbane were just a very slow football team. It was all one out. The shifting was all slow. At least with Ezra, what you saw on the weekend is he injected speed, right? If a team wants to pay Selwyn Cobbo $1 million to play fullback, I'll make Brisbane's decision for him. You can have him because he ain't a fullback's ringhole, I'm telling you. Very lazy when you watch him live. And I actually think Selwyn could be a great player, but he's very lazy when you watch him live.
But he's got a few mates in that team, doesn't he?
He does have a few mates in the team, Ollie. You're right. Easy options. It's just taking easy options, not getting back on side, no kick chase pressure, not getting back behind the ball to take. Payne Haas on the weekend. Again, I was there. He had his arm free about 2 or 3 times for an offload, not one Broncos player trailing. That's where Cobbo, that's where your Edwards is. That's where your Tedesco is. They're trailing Hammer. They're always trailing your alpha front rower. And Brisbane just aren't. That's what I'm saying. Half overplaying their
It's very individualised, isn't it?
Correct, mate. And that's all it is because they're all trying to solve the problem individually instead of working together.
They're a team of stars, aren't they, rather than a star team? And
I wonder, Molly, whether Madge whether he's come in and he's just gone, you know what? I want you to just not we're just going to change everything. Instead of gradually changing it over a period of time, whether he's just gone, you know what, I'm going to change everything. Yeah. And he's just hit the players with this massive amount of change and they haven't responded. Maybe that's the wrong way to go about it. I don't know. I think Brisbane will get better. I think they've got too much talent to not be in the 8. I think Walsh coming back into the team, probably next game, I think he's due back, is a game changer for the Broncos. Their best. They got to the 2023 grand final on the back of speed and second phase play.
Yep, they're winning games 42-24.
That's it. And they will do that again when you inject speed with Walsh and men.
Yeah,
Ben Hunt playing in the 9. He will control the ruck. Brisbane have not had a hooker since Luke Priddis in the 2000 grand final.
Yeah, well, I'll put in my 2 bobs worth because I think it's valid. And
I've had a gutful, by the way.
Elements of Molly and you, Dicko. You're right, Molly, when you say Madge and Dicko as well. Like, has Madge changed a lot of things? Has he been too hard? The answer is probably yes. But it's only that way because Kevy was probably a little bit too soft, right? So it's almost like they need to meet at halfway, which I think will eventually happen. I think Madge will eventually come to terms with the fact that some of these players don't respond too well, and we can see that right now, to that full-on, all-the-time, hard-nose coaching, which Madge is. And I think he needs to develop as a coach in that way. To understand his players better, and he's learning on the run there. And he does say it in the press conference, and I have no doubt about it that is the case because I actually rate Madge as a coach. And you saw him out coach Billy last year in the State of Origin. But the players ultimately, once they cross that white line, take full responsibility of what happens out there on the field. regardless of what's been implemented from the coaching perspective. And there's one key element to where the Broncos have dominated games for 80 minutes almost. Because I don't actually think the Broncos are going that bad in the sense that every game, 40 minutes of the game, they're unreal. And the other 14 minutes, they're woeful. And unfortunately, the woeful's outweighing the good at the moment.
And you don't beat the good teams playing 40 minutes.
Totally.
Yeah,
but the
right.
last 20 minutes, particularly in the last month of football, and I kind of want to say it's down to one particular player having too much say across the team, and that's Adam Reynolds.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes,
Adam
I knew
Reynolds,
you were going to say that too.
in the last 20 minutes of every game they've lost this season, has either gone MIA or played ultra conservative. And that is not how the Broncos win football games. They are an invasive, throw the ball around, off the cuff,
Tack threat,
pace side.
Well, the last play of the game against the Dragons, I'm sure, Dicko, I don't need to remind you, he had the ball in hand, he had guys outside him, and he just held it too long and got smashed and game over.
With 3 minutes to go after Jesse Arthur's scored, I literally said word for word in a couple of group chats, if the Broncos play conservative, they'll lose this game. And I had a couple of weird comments like, why on earth would they play conservative? They're, got to score a try to win. That last set was that conservative. It wasn't funny. Like, how do you go from playing an expansive style of football that literally within 20 seconds tore the Dragons back line to shreds to then in the last, and to be fair, all their momentum was halted by Clint Gutherson penalty stripping the ball, which he should have been sin bin for, but it would have made a difference. If they'd have played the same style instead of one out, and then Reynolds too slow at the end, they would have won the game. They're on the ropes.
Yeah.
And Adam Reynolds needs to take accountability for that.
I think you're right. Like, I think I said that today, actually, to one of the boys at work. I think, he's almost, for me, he's almost playing himself out of me wanting him to be re-signed, Reynolds, at the moment, because I feel like he's a yard off the pace.
Well, was there word that he said he's happy to come out and retire now? Did I?
That was the report. Molly might know more, but that's the report that I heard.
Yeah, I saw something that they're offering him a job on the coaching staff, which is a way of putting him out the pasture. But listen, guys, for people south of the border, we got to get off the Broncos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Molly, for people,
we've given them half an hour.
We've got to get off the Broncos. I've had a gutful of them.
Yeah. Now, talking of not so much the Broncos, and Selwyn Cobbo and the injuries that have been happening, guys, the injuries at the moment are at an all-time high, particularly hamstrings and whatnot. Is this down to the pace of the game, or what's the situation?
Yeah, well, I think guys are just running faster, hitting each other harder. We've got the HIAs causing havoc. And knee injuries with all the wrestling and guys being twisted and turned and three in a tackle. It's a sad byproduct of our game, and it's
every team's got about 5 or 6 players out at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's getting more physical, it's getting faster, and I think this is the way. I really feel like, and I don't know, I really haven't sort of spoken about this. I feel like there's going to be a breaking point where the game's going to have to rein itself in a little bit, because if we're going to continually getting the best players missing chunks of football because of injury and because of the speed of the game, therefore creates more fatigue, faster, it's quicker, the guys are bigger, the collisions are more powerful. There's going to be a circuit breaker, and we're going to have to rein it back in a little bit. I really
you can
feel
see
like
the NRL's already trying to do that, aren't they? I mean, guys are regularly being penalised for tackling too hard. But players come in, they resent a bloke being smashed, even if it didn't hit his head, the fact that he hurt a bloke, and the refs will award a penalty just to restore order. And I shudder to think what's going to happen in Origin when they start belting each other, because we all know the rules change then, and with Klein having the whistle, anything's possible.
Well, it proves that depth is just so important now in, that top 30. And I suppose it's like, obviously I'm a little bit biased here, but it's probably why Penrith have been so successful the last few years, because the depth from their grassroots and their pathways have sort of shone through. And we're seeing that right now with the Bulldogs at the top of the table. Who are your guys' favourite currently to take out the title?
Oh, I don't have a favourite to win, but I'll give you a grand final that I think on current form.
Yep.
Bulldogs versus Warriors
Bulldogs versus Warriors.
is what
That's
I
going to be
think.
difficult because Melbourne's going to win the comp.
Really, Molly? So you're not
think they're
concerned?
their morals.
You're not concerned? 2 of the last 4. Bellamy's now in his official coaching director role for New South Wales. So the next 8 weeks he's going to be a bit preoccupied. You're not concerned there at all, Molly?
Nah, they got points in the bank. They'll make the finals. Origin will be a distant memory by September. He's the best coach in the game. He's got the best players in the spine. Pappenhausen, Hughes, Munster, and Harry Grant. And if he can keep those 4 on the field, they'll romp him.
So if they get an injury to one of those 4, can they still win?
Depends which one and who they're replacing with, but obviously that's going to blunt them to some extent. But it's the same with any team, isn't it? You lose one of your elite players, everything changes.
So if we talk about Melbourne, if you think one guy that's not expendable out of that 4, who do you think it is? Because I think I know who it is. Who do you think it is?
It's a tough question. Probably Pappenhausen.
Yeah, okay. I would have said Jerome Hughes personally. I don't think their record with him is great. And they don't have a halfback I know Tyron Wishart does a job, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, I said the Bulldogs Warriors, but they're dark clouds looming, and it's the Melbourne Storm, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think Jerome Hughes is as good as Cleary. I think he's the equal best halfback in the game.
I think he's the forgotten man, really, Molly, to be honest with you. Like, he's in Melbourne. He's out of sight, out of mind. He's also a Kiwi, I think, I think you're spot on. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. Like, the bloke's won a Dally M.
Well, he's got a Dally M, so...
I suppose Cleary's got 4 premierships, so...
Cleary doesn't have a Dally M, but...
No, true. You're right. But yeah, that would be mine. Grand final, Bulldogs, Warriors. Right now, if I'm right now, I would have them too.
Honestly, guys, I'm going to go with a bit of a dark horse, and
here we go.
We'll make a bit of a segue into this, but I'm going to say the Sharks have got the monkey off the back now.
Oh, they were impressive on the weekend.
They have finally got the monkey off the back, because I don't know how many games it's been since they've beaten Melbourne, but they've had a lot of fixtures against them and some big games over the last few years. And same with Penrith, Sharks and Penrith. But
well, they're a top 4 team. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
That was the first time that I've seen the Sharks play a top 4 team and really own the game.
They both dominated physically and mentally. I thought they really got into the heads of Melbourne.
And they've got no players out at Origin.
And you're right, Dizz. I thought they dominated. Melbourne made a run. Cronulla steadied. Previously, and I think you'd agree, Molly, they wouldn't have done that.
No, that's true.
And
the beauty of their attack is they've got the 2 aces, Hines and Trindle, and somehow it works. One can have an off day and the other one will shine. And they seem to like take it in turns, and it works for them, and it wins them games.
Yeah. Bear in mind, Sione Katoa is still to come back for them as well. And they're missing a couple of forwards like Tommy Hazelton. Sifa Talakai and Atkinson were unbelievable on the weekend.
Yeah. And Will Kennedy, who everyone thought was the weak link, has probably been the form fullback of them all.
And the player who is ruffling some feathers
What do you think, Molly, here?
Ronaldo Mulatalo. I tell you what, I love the enthusiasm, but he's gone a little bit over the top.
He has, and mate, in the old days, and I go back to the old days, a big front rower would have just come up and gone boom, and that would have been the end of him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, he would've.
it's a really, I mean,
You know what it gave me flashbacks of, Dicko? Luai standing over
a concussed,
or whoever it was.
yeah. I don't think it's a great look personally. I don't think it's something that we need to be condoning. And if we really strip it back and sort of not have a laugh about it, we shouldn't be condoning that stuff and showing that to kids. I don't think. I don't
Well,
think
he's going to get the villain tag pretty quickly, isn't he?
I don't think we want to see that when we go down on a Saturday morning and watching the under 12s play a game of rugby league where someone makes an error and then the winger from the opposition team goes and stands over him and you know and all that. I just don't think that, and Molly's right. You know, it just wouldn't have happened 25, 30 years ago because Atino would have run up to him and clobbered him, and there would have been some haymakers thrown and probably none land, and then they would have separated and he wouldn't have done it again. But, you know, this is the game we live in, and for some reason we're allowing it to happen. I don't like it. I think it looks ordinary. I don't think it's tough at all, personally. And then Pappenhausen
Reed
gets back
Marnie
at
was
him.
doing it last year every week, if you recall.
Yeah,
and I think he's reined himself in a bit. He's still got a bit of rat in him, but he's more behaved this year. I think Gus or someone has spoken.
I was going to say, do you reckon Uncle Gus has had a chat to him?
I think so. And Ronaldo's taken over his mantle as the most hated man, I think.
Probably
it's not a good look. Yeah, exactly. Just play footy, mate, because he's a good player. That's all he needs to do. Play footy.
Now, to wrap up, let's do a quick preview of the games this weekend, even though they're a little bit all over the shop due to the origin selections. We got one on Thursday, one on Friday, two on Saturday, and one on Sunday. Bulldogs versus the Dolphins, guys. Can we see the Bulldogs run continuing?
Guys, Gus put up the Bulldogs injuries / suspensions - origins and almost ran for a whole page. And as a result, I reckon the Dolphins, they're paying about $3.50. I reckon they're the bet of the weekend. They've got a couple out. But I reckon the Dolphins are specials with all the Bulldogs injuries and origins. And we're talking about all their best players, you know, the Max Kings, the guys who do the work, the Stephen Crichtons who lead them. So, I think they're in real trouble.
Yeah, Max King's out, Josh Curran's out, Sam Hughes is still out, Preston's still suspended, Tupanua's still suspended, Jacob Kiraz is now injured, Jack Todd, who was on the bench, is out, and so is Jamin Salmon, and now Sakula Fafita's got the HIA. So
I'm going to pick the Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
Titans don't play well in Sydney. So not the Titans. The Dolphins don't play well in Sydney.
Look, I'm with Molly. I'm going to lock in the Dolphins.
That's all right, mate. I'm going to pull away another tip on you.
I think the odds are just wrong.
Nah, Bulldogs easy. Bulldogs easy.
Eels versus Seagulls. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. No Moses and no Cherry Evans. How do we see this one faring? Because this is at CommBank, and we know that the Seagulls don't like leaving the northern beaches and haven't done it much this year.
Manly for me, Turbo, man of the match.
Oh, you reckon he's going to make a statement on one leg?
Yep. Easy one.
Eels for me, but just summing up this whole situation, this is why I don't like the origin period. We got games like this that they're almost meaningless.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything, does it? You can't get excited for them.
The Bulldogs game before.
Well, what about the next game? What about
players out?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, look, lock in the Seagulls with zero confidence.
Yep.
This game's a joke. This next one, as a Penrith fan, seriously, we're playing against the Knights, and I'll be straight up when I say this. I think that the Penrith Panthers will win this game, and the Knights should be ashamed of the fact that the Penrith Panthers will probably win this.
I agree. I think Penrith will win this.
We've got 5 players out.
Yeah, but the Knights can't play.
This is the problem. Like, Like, this is just embarrassing. It's actually in Bathurst, believe it or not.
Well,
Put the
well-
fixture for Origin week in Bathurst.
Well, this is gonna reflect very poorly if the Knights lose on themselves and the club that they are, as much as they probably don't want to be known as a one-man team. They are effectively if they can't get it. If they can go here and win and beat Penrith, and I know Penrith are going to be down on troops, I feel like the Knights might just get a bit of confidence out of the fact that Kalen's not there and they don't have to rely on him to get a win. Might just kickstart them. But if they don't win here,
They should be winning this game.
if they don't win, mate, I think we will be breaking a certain news story through next week.
And the odds are crazy,
Yeah.
like in favour of Penrith.
So
Like,
I'm tipping Penrith here.
I think we all are, aren't we?
Molly?
Which says a lot about where the Knights are.
Yeah, he's gone the Panthers.
I tipped the Knights. I think we all tipped the Knights last week, didn't we?
Yes.
Against the Eels.
Yeah.
Gee, they
we
showed
did well
some
there.
ticker for Gagai's 300th, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Roosters versus the Sharks. I'm actually looking forward to this one. Obviously, Sharks have no players out.
Sharks.
Yeah, I honestly think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Roosters got too many out. They got a lot injured. And
This is in Gosford as well. Why are we taking these games to these places in this round?
well, I think the thinking is the home fans won't turn up with all the stars missing, but you take it to Gosford and the locals will say, "Oh, there's a game of footy on." Same as in Bathurst, they'll turn up.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, lock in the Sharks, eh?
Yeah, Sharks for me.
Sharks by
Yeah.
too many.
Yep.
Now this is going to be a cracker. Actually, finally a good game where there's not many Origin stars out, apart from Hudson, Young, and Barnett. So it's pretty even, really. Second versus third, Warriors versus the Raiders in Auckland. Oh, this is tough.
Warriors at home, but it'll be a dour contest, I reckon. Low scoring. The Warriors just. Metcalf is in the form of his absolute life.
Well, you can almost guarantee it's low scoring. Warriors are 8 wins, 2 losses with a point differential of 5. How does that work?
But yeah, Warriors for me.
Yep, throwing Warriors as well. The Luke Metcalf factor, he's killing it.
Yep.
I'm going to say the Raiders. The Raiders to get up here. Corey Horsburgh to have an absolute blinder and tell Billy to shove it.
Yeah, you're right. But the most important thing for this round is the Broncos are going to pick up 2 points. So you beauty. Thank you.
It's about time. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, mate.
Okay,
Cheers.
guys, talk next week.